Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, guys.
Hi, friends.
Hello.
Is it recording now? Are we?
It is. Let me pause. Thank you, Kim. And Ashley Belote is our moderator tonight. She is the illustrator for Frankenslime and Valenslime. She is the author illustrator of her solo debut early reader, The Meat Tree, and her solo debut picture book, Listen Up, Luella, which comes out this year in 2022. Ashley is originally from Terra Alta, West Virginia. She earned her BA from Alderson Broaddus University and her MA in Arts Administration from the University of Kentucky. Her graduate study included a children's literature and illustration course. The whole book approach through Simmons College and the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art and a traditional animation program under the direction of Don Bluth. She also serves as the illustrator coordinator for the Carolinas chapter of SCBWI. Ashley is represented by Mo Ferrara at Bookends Literary Agency, and she has her website, ashleybelote.com. I am going to let you guys take it away.
Thank you so much, Hallie, and thank you all so much for joining us today. I know that you are as excited as I am to celebrate a penny's worth and these two magnificent Kidlit creators tonight. And we have a great representation from Kim's family, her friends, and the Kidlit community in general. So again, we just want to thank you all for being here to support this amazing title as it comes out into the world. Finally, I know that I have seen this book from the very first draft when Penny was first minted, and I just could not be more thrilled that this book is now coming out into the world as a finished product ready to be enjoyed by everybody, adults and kids alike. It will appeal to both. So with that, thank you, Kim and Mark, for both coming and joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for moderating all the way from Hawaii.
Yes, I'm in Hawaii right now, but you know, that's what you do for best friends when they have book events. You just make it work. All right, so I have a great list of questions. And like I said, if you joined us a little bit later after I mentioned this, if you all have questions for Mark or for Kim, just type them into the chat and we'll get to as many as possible at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in with a few of my questions here. I'd like to get started kind of at the beginning of this journey here, because that's what this is, you know, making a book and being a Kidlit creator really is a journey, and everybody has a different story behind their story. So Kim, how did you first come up with the idea for Penny?
Well, those of us in the Kidlit community know what Story Storm is with Tara Lazar. Those of us that are not, it is a month long of brainstorming ideas. So there are blog posts by different authors. I was very fortunate to be one of them this year. But we spend the month brainstorming for stories that we want to write throughout the year. So I had those Story Storm goggles on. Gosh, it was 2019 in January. And I simply looked over at the jug of coins in my kitchen and I was like, there's a story there. And and so that's kind of the seed that started the whole journey for Penny. First draft came out, I think it was the night my daughter was at the father-daughter dance with my husband, and I just poured it out on the paper. And of course, the next day I looked at it and I started rewriting it. But, you know, I think as that idea, or as that little sprout turned into something bigger, it gave me the opportunity to take, you know, a penny and worth and value and showing kids more about self-worth and teaching that. So I saw that avenue kind of open up as that seed of a story grew. So that's kind of where it all started.
I love it. So much story behind the story. And again, everybody's journey is different and everyone's creative process is different. So it's really neat to see kind of where these ideas are stemming from. So with that, now we kind of know how the words started. So now we can learn a little bit about how the pictures started. So Mark, what made you actually say yes to doing this book?
Well, one, the publisher is down the road from me, so I know them, which was kind of a lovely thing. I had worked with some of the folks there prior on some sort of early drafts of things of another book, and we were sort of hoping to work together. And then I ended up, and I'm gonna let Kim know this right now, that she stole my idea. Because she can ask my wife. My wife is watching. I can see her right now. About a year before I signed on to this book, somewhere in there, I was playing around with an idea about a lucky penny that wasn't sure how much it was worth. And so when this kind of fell in my lap, it was like, okay, here's my chance. I didn't write it. I couldn't figure out how to write it. And so here was this lovely manuscript that sort of literally landed in my lap that was like perfect for me. And if you even look through my Instagram feed, there was a penny image early on that is there that I assumed that they found, and they were like, oh, okay, there's a relationship there. We can find make a penny book. And so what really caught me was the puns throughout. I liked the idea. I'm a big inanimate object person, that I think anything, you throw legs and arms onto something, it's always kind of funny. And so giving me the opportunity to sort of mess with this, and I had just come off of working on one of my books, Dirt Cheap, that was about money as well. And so I was sort of like, I was in the mood to continue this conversation about money and working, especially with kids, learning about the value of money. My son, who is somewhere on screen here on my end, there he is, was at the right age where he was learning about money and sort of like what they all mean, what a penny is, what a nickel is, what all these things. And so it was sort of perfect timing across the board. And so I was happy to sign on to it. And it just came out beautiful in my mind. So.
Oh, that
This
is fabulous.
so awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Kim, did you know any of
Yeah,
this?
it was meant to be. Oh
It
my gosh, I
was.
love it. I love it. But I do have to say, when when all of this came about, of course, I went out and bought your book, Dirt Cheap, and I absolutely love it. So this is also fascinating to me. So I'm so excited to hear the story behind all of this. So,
well, you did what I couldn't do. And so it was lovely to have someone do the hard work for me, because writing is not my forte. And
well, I can say your side is not my forte. So I guess we make a great team, huh?
Perfect. Well, there's a reason why we're doing two, right?
Yes,
Exactly. Yes. And it really was. It was one of those things that was meant to be this way. And you each kind of brought your own spin to it, which again is a lovely relationship of creativity here. So going back to you, Kim, you mentioned, you wrote the first draft, and then you looked at it the next day, and then you started revising, which is a big part of the picture book process. So tell us a little bit about your specific process in writing this book, and were there any major challenges that you faced throughout this process?
Well, as Mark said, it was not an easy topic to approach once I started digging into it. So a little bit about the beginning of the process. After I came up with, the little seed, I like to list. So Mark brought up the puns, idioms, puns. I go down this like rabbit hole, and I write everything down. There are lists and lists and lists of them. I mean, most of them never make any manuscripts ever, but it helps me brainstorm and go from cent puns to dollar puns to bank puns and then I have this long list so that when I do need a pun, there's usually one that'll fit it perfectly into the puzzle. So that was that's kind of the beginning of my process. A lot of times I write a pitch in the beginning, just so that I can formulate my ideas and stick to it. This one was a little trickier, and it took me a little bit more time to formulate that. Mark sees it as easy to throw legs on an inanimate object. I like writing about inanimate objects, but I had the hardest time figuring out how Penny was going to move around, because I knew that pennies and coins and other, money is passed from pocket to cash register to purse to, so I wanted to kind of keep that, but at the same time, make it a character-driven story and make Penny reach her goal. So I had to have her, okay, happenstance, there is a hole in a pocket. Well, she pops out of it. And she does that actively. So she's constantly moving towards her goal. So I had to keep that kind of balance. And I put some little art notes, but Mark did a phenomenal job on balancing that, so that it followed the manuscript, but had so much extra to it and added that, who doesn't love a penny with pants? I mean, it's fantastic. So he added that bit of humor that I was hoping for, but I was also trying to be a little bit practical with a penny with legs, so balancing that was a little bit of a challenge. I think finding the challenge again between monetary value and self-worth was another one I struggled with. The heart of the story, I really felt and I wanted a certain way, but it was hard for me to get there. I have to say, I see a lot of my critique partners that Ashley, you're one of them, that held my hand through the whole thing. And, we brainstormed together, we talked together. I had the support of everybody throughout the process in trying to figure this out, and also encouraging me to follow the story in my heart once it came to the end. So I knew that the story was right once that switch was flipped and the emotional arc was there, from monetary value to self-worth. That's when it all kind of clicked into place, and it takes a village, and I'm lucky to have that village. So that's kind of a little bit about the process of writing it. I will say writing a picture book can take, I guess it took me 1.5 years to really get it to where I needed it to be. I think I saved it 200 times, rewrote it about six full rewrites. So it was quite the process, but a joy to write.
Absolutely. Yeah. The joy shows, the joy of your process, I think, really comes through in the words. And even if you haven't read this, I mean, you can tell from just looking at it and, hearing about the puns that are throughout it, you can already tell that it is a joyful, happy story. And I think something that everybody here, if you are, writing or illustrating, something to take away from what Kim just said is perseverance. I think that is something that you have to have as a Kidlit creator, and she is obviously, kind of voicing this right now. And it's also nice that we can see what happens when you do persevere and the success that you can have come from it. So with that, there's always challenges, like you were just saying, your challenges for writing. There's also challenges that come with illustrating. So now, Mark, I'd like to hear a little bit about your artistic process and if there were any types of challenges that you faced doing the art versus the words.
There are some interesting challenges with this one. I will give you that much. So I work primarily with acrylic paints. I'm sort of antiquated at this point because most illustrators are moving towards digital. I do work on digital format sometimes, but I still love paint. And so there's some technical issues that have to go along with that. And some of the technical things that happen in this book in particular, since all the words have to be separated from the images. I have images here, but they have no words in them. So the equivalent of a page where it would say, I forget what this one says, flip, flop, splash. I forget what the words are on this one. But all that has to be separated. And so I had to find ways to sort of digitally compose these. And then the bigger issue, honestly, that came up was the penny's name is Penny. And the penny itself features Abraham Lincoln. And so there was a big conversation with the publisher on how do we manage that end of it. And there was talk about, can we put a face on top of Abraham Lincoln's face? And there was some trial and error there. And we eventually settled on the idea of what what Penny looks like in that finished version. But there was a lot of trial and error of like, how do we manage persona in the coins based on, and still make them look relatively close to the original coin, and get that representation out there. But there was questions about color, there was questions about all sorts of things in designing them. So I essentially had to do similar to what you would do with a manuscript, where you have to send off like an outline, or you have to send off sort of proof of concept. I had to do the same thing with all the coins. So Page Street, who published this, asked me, can you give us all the coins? Can we see what they look like? And so I forget, there were different outfits for some of them at certain points. And like the equivalent of, for any illustrators that are watching this, one of the challenges that I find in working on a book is limitations of color. And so I might go and put a pink shirt on a character, but then if they're next to pink at some point, how do you manage that value that's there? And so I had to go through, and the outfits on them, specifically the quarter, changed from shorts to pants to shorts to pants to shorts, and back and forth, trying to manage sort of how things lined up in the sketches. And eventually we got there. We got to a point where it sort of all came together, but it is a challenge. I will say the other challenge that came up is just detail. If you go look at some of these coins, the amount of detail on them, and trying to sort of simplify it, in particular the dollar bill that shows up in this, and then to have a whole other book of dollar bill, I was like, oh man, there's a ton of detail. Yep. I don't want to get ahead of things, but there are some characters in the next book that their presentation is even more complex. And it's like, how do you figure out to make it legible for someone, but still keep it fun and light? And so that was the main hurdle, is that sort of like character development on these. So I don't know if I answered that, but hopefully I did.
You did. You definitely did. The trials and tribulations of writing and illustrating, there you have it. Both sides, both of those problems are extremely real. And, I also think that those types of challenges make this really fun too. It's so neat to have these situations that you kind of create for yourself, and you have to like find your way through, because it really does lead to kind of this whole organic motion of creativity and problem solving that you didn't even think would be part of the process, but it is. So it's really neat to see how both of you kind of came through those different types of problems. So moving on with another question for Kim. So we've talked about the background of the story. Now we've talked about the background of the art. So, you've both kind of done your part. So Kim, what was it like to see Penny for the first time? And what about Mark's art do you think makes it perfect for this story?
I like this question. Well, number one,
I do too.
I will always remember seeing the character art he was just talking about for the first time, because it was my birthday. And so it was literally the best birthday present ever. And I remember, okay, so I didn't know about all of the face discussions, nothing. I saw it after that. So this is all news to me, which I love hearing. But my reaction to, what he had done with the coins and dollar, I was thrilled. Like I said, best birthday present ever. One thing I particularly liked about the character design was the little bit of teal thrown in there on Penny. So I loved how it gave it some dimension, and I know that as copper ages, it kind of develops that color. So I loved how that was put in, and just kind of amazed. But I loved the dimension of it. I loved her expressions. I loved the movement. When I saw the full art for the first time, I loved the retro feel of the arcade and the candy store. It was everything. It was more than I I could have imagined. And it was absolutely, in my eyes, absolutely perfect for this story. So just beside myself thrilled.
How do you feel about that answer, Mark? Was that good?
Yeah, that feels pretty good.
Okay, good.
It's funny
On
because
and on all day about how much I
The-
love the art.
yeah, I mean, I'm happy to sit here for another hour or two and listen. The funny thing is, like, there's no interaction between us. This is the first time we've actually talked to each other.
Yeah.
Voice to voice, face to face.
Mhm.
And so I never get to see that reaction. The process of removing the illustrator and the author, there's a disconnect there. And so I never get to see either the joy or the frustration or whatever comes with it, with handing off my artwork. I just wait and hope and pray that I'm going to not get a ton of notes back and have to change everything, especially because it's done traditionally. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting sort of idea that you got something in the mail. Because to me, it's almost like you hand off words, and I'm so impressed with the idea of you wrote a story. You have ways of working with words and language that I'm not necessarily on par with of any sort. And then I hand off my artwork, and I'm just like, oh man, this artwork, it's a job. Here we go, and I hand it off, and then there's this like amazement, and I look behind the scenes and I go, oh, there's all these errors, there's mistakes. I wish I made that a little bit darker. And I see, oh no, Penny's pants on this are slightly different color than on this other page, but people don't notice those things, and it's it's nice to see that there's this like reaction to it. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like we were saying, it's so neat that you guys are here, because if you are joining us and you're not in the publishing business, the author and the illustrator are kept at arm's length so that neither one of them can influence the other. Everybody at the publishing house wants them to bring what they think to the project without any outside influence. So it's clear that, again, you all were matched up extremely well, because everything that you both did seemed to enhance what the other one was doing. So it was, a great choice on their part. So now I have a few questions that I'd like to ask each of you. And since we're still talking kind of about the art, I'd like to hear from each of you if you have a favorite spread in the book and why that one is your favorite. And also if you have a favorite character that you particularly liked writing about or illustrating more. So Kim, we can start with you.
Okay. In terms of, I'll go character because that's what I wrote. I mean, view wise, I love them. I love them all. They're all
I know.
Like,
I was very curious to see if you would actually answer that.
But I will say I had a great time writing dialogue for these characters to make them very individual. We have, the slot surfing quarter. We have, the tip and pay and donate and dollar. So the cowboy. We have Dime, who's more, teacher-like, which Mark did a great job doing her little professor hat, and we have Eeyore Nickel, who I have a special place in my heart for. I call him Eeyore Nickel because he's
sad little nickel.
And I have to say that Mark added stubble and a beanie. Oh my gosh, so perfect. I love it. So yeah, I have a special place in my heart for Eeyore Nickel, even though I love them all, and especially Penny, of course. Yeah, and I think we've already kind of okay, let's see. We haven't gone over I don't like to pick a favorite spread. Okay. Because they're all kind of so good. I mean, they all have different viewpoints. There's one where Penny's looking into the sewer and it's like kind of from below, and she's the vantage point is just so great. Gosh, I mean, I already said I love the arcade and the candy store. There's just so much going on, but I'm going to go with one that Mark, this is more of the baffling, holy cow, this was meant to be moment. Okay. So that's what I'm going to go with. So when I wrote the manuscript a long time before Mark received it, there was an art note at the end, and Ashley, you may remember this, where it said something to the effect of all the coins gather at the fountain and celebrate Penny. And I took it out, completely took it out. Do you know what Mark did in the end papers? Boom. I mean, it was like just reading my mind. So I love that. It means a lot to me, these end papers. I love end papers in general. In every book, I stare at them for hours because I'm just so fascinated with end papers. And for those who don't know what end papers are, there's some in the front, and some in the back of the book, that just kind of either start or continue the story, or sometimes they're plain colors, sometimes they have a design to them. They can do various different things, but in this case, it kind of continues the story, which I love. And it's interesting because I had the idea for the second story, which is A Dollar's Grand Dream, which comes out next year. And Mark is, of course, illustrating. And it was about the dollar, of course, and I get the final artwork for this project as I'm having this idea, and dollar's sitting here right at the end of the book. And I was like, no, we got to do it. I got to do it. Got to write it. Got to write it. It's speaking to me. Dollar's right there looking at me saying, where's my story? So anyways, I'm going to have to go with the end papers. Long story. Or a short story long.
Good, very good choice. I think that there's so many things that we can take away from everything that Kim just said, but one thing that I do want to point out is voice in picture books. She has all these different characters and they all have a different personality, which means they have to have a different voice, and she handled that extremely well. So if you are working on writing a picture book and there are a few different characters with big personalities, this will be a great mentor text, because each of them, without even seeing the images, you can tell who is speaking because she does the voice changes so well. I also love that you talked about the end papers so much, because for Mark, that is like the dream space, because there's no words that you have to put on those pages. You can just kind of make them. And so, yeah, I figured that those were going to be your favorites, Kim, because I know you. So Mark, now I'm very curious to hear what your favorite spread is in the book and who your favorite character was to work with.
I'm going to say favorite character. I did like the nickel. I think the nickel is probably right up there, but I'm actually going to go with the dime. And I think the dime, there's like a childish innocence to the faces. He's always kind of happy. I mean, I guess it's the antithesis of the nickel. There's the sad, depressed nickel. And then there's the dime, who, even though is not worth a ton and can't even buy half the candy in the candy store, is still like really happy through majority of it. And, looking at when I was designing him, there was this idea of he's the educator of the bunch. And so he's got his little cap and mortar. And so that became kind of fun. The one that I like the best, and I think part of it has to do with the text, part of it has to do with like the spot in the book. So as the illustrator, it's the pagination and figuring out, sometimes the galleys are sent to us, so we see all the words on the pages and we know what context, or where that page turn is essentially. And this one, because of the limit on the words themselves, I think is my favorite, which is this gutter one. And it's funny, there's two reasons why this one's my favorite. One, it was probably the easiest one to paint. So it just didn't have a lot to it. I had to paint some sewer grate and 2 pennies, and that was about it. Whereas if you look at some of the other ones, like one of my favorite ones is the arcade, but I also really love the dime page. But I will tell you, the pain of drawing some of these things was a nightmare. And I can still remember this day, sitting there and having to paint all the shine on everything and layering and stacking. But the sewer one, the thing that really made it for me was just the desperation. And then the fact that, when working with Julia, who was the designer on this, who did all the type, the idea of just doing ignored, forgotten, and stuck being really separated, that there is the leading in between those type lines is relatively big. And so it's got this sort of like quiet moment that we have a lot. And, in fact, looking at the page before it, there's gasp, plink, plunk. And I think the page after it, there's even some action going on the page. And so it's this quiet little moment that's probably about 3/4 of the way through the book that I think is really nice. And then just the simplification of those words, it gets across the idea really easily. And so I sort of lean on that one of like, it's not really about the image, it's about the placement and what it has to say in context with the rest of the book itself. And I do love in papers, but in papers are also like, it's a battle of trying to figure out what to put in those, because sometimes they tie into the story, sometimes they don't. And more publishers are looking for in papers to say part of the story. Like, you don't start after the title page in most books nowadays. It is, let's start on page 1. Actually, no, page 1 is your paste down. Start on page 2, 3. There you go. Yeah, so.
This is great, you guys. This is such fantastic information. If you came in late, if you have questions for Mark or Kim, you can type them into the chat here. And in a couple minutes, we are going to start pulling from those questions. So if you have any burning question, I know I have several. So if you guys don't type any, I can fill our time. Don't worry. So one more question that I have for both of you. You've kind of talked a little bit about Kim in particular. You talked a little bit about the struggle of self-worth and monetary value and how you kind of worked those together. And there's a friendship undertone in this. There are so many different types of things you can pull from this book. So what in particular do you hope that kids gain from reading this story?
Well, I think that kids sometimes associate their value as to what they're told. So, Penny's told you're a cent. A kid might be told, you're a good soccer player, you're good at math, you're this, you're that, whatever the label is. And all of that's great. They can be good at so many things, but really, I guess getting them to look at themselves as a person and seeing their real inner worth. I know that's like a tall hope, but I hope through this story, kids can realize how much they are worth as a human being in this world, and what all the things that they can contribute to this world. The other thing I would love them to learn from this book is a little money math. I think math can sometimes be very structured and whatnot. We tried to sneakily put some of these facts in here. For example, quarter says to penny, you're 24 cents short. So we've done a little math there, and the kids don't even know it. So there's some back matter as well that will help teachers in the classroom. But yeah, I hope that it makes math a little bit more fun too. And I hope they want to read the book over and over again, because I know Mark put a ton of stuff in there that I see something new every time I look through the book. So rereadability is on the forefront as well.
Oh yeah. So Mark, what about you? What do you hope that kids gain from looking at the art that you've made for the story?
The educational value of knowing the difference between the coins, and that it's funny because I'm not a big coin person. I went out and I brought this to my son's school and read it to them just as a fun thing, and I was thinking, I'll bring a penny. Or the other day I was doing a little shoot of it for my Instagram, and I needed a penny, and I struggled to find a penny in my house because they're just not as common anymore. Most people are using cards or things of the sort. And so kids, I still think there is value in a penny. Kids still like the idea of a penny. And so I want them to really sort of appreciate the coins and sort of see that there is something sort of important there. And the other thing that I think is really sort of interesting, or I think that most people don't pay attention to, is are the details on a coin. And that there is, there's coin collectors out there. There's people that really care about these things that oftentimes are just something in the bottom of our pocket. And so sort of relating that to the kids again, that idea of sort of, again, that value or the importance of worth or the importance of coins, the math element, all of that I think comes into play in this, that I hope the kids sort of latch onto, and I hope they see the fun in sort of coins, and I hope they don't go and just say, I want penny candy and candy and candy the whole time.
That's definitely not going to happen. Don't
Oh,
worry.
they will learn, yeah, that a penny candy does not work that way.
No.
So
Another thing I was thinking is that this is a story of hope. She doesn't give up. So I hope that resonates too. And I think a lot of us, including kids, need hope. They need humor. So I hope they enjoy the book and laugh a little and, enjoy the story for entertainment as well.
Oh yeah, they absolutely will. Don't worry about that. That's done. That's done. So just if you all are looking at the chat, Carol Baldwin did an interview with Kim on her blog, and there is a link to that interview where she talks all about kind of a little bit about her process. So if you want to follow that link, you can click it from the chat and save it for later after we're finished.
I think Mark answered some questions on there too. So
yes, awesome. And also, we have a few questions coming in from the chat, and one of them is from Megan, and she asked this question for Mark. She asked, how did you figure out a way to illustrate a penny? And, you've talked a little bit about this, but I think we can add on to this a bit and ask about how your specific process works in terms of your traditional artwork. Do you work at scale when you make your artwork, or do you have to work larger than the trim size of the book? And how do you transfer your originals from being in your house to the publishing company? Do you scan? Do you mail? How does that all work?
So I am actually, in fact, this might be an easier way for people to understand it. Every Thursday night on my Instagram, I do live paint from, unfortunately, from 9 p.m. until generally about 1 or 2 in the morning. That's my work schedule because of teaching and whatnot happens to be that. But I go through the whole process where I go from sketch to finish. So if anybody really wants to see that, that is a really good way, but I will describe it the best I can. So when I'm working on a book, often, yes, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yes. So if you just go to Studio Hoffmann on Instagram, generally every Thursday night, not generally, every Thursday night, I just do it. So I'll be doing it this Thursday. I start from a sketch. I generally use iPad or something of the sort when it's a book. If not, if it's just pencil, I do it in pencil. I throw it down on illustration board. It's roughly about 150% the scale. So if I have the dime book here, here's the actual book. So you can see the sort of scale of it. It is much bigger than the actual thing, primarily so I can get the detail in. And then once I paint it, I throw it into Photoshop. I scan it onto my computer, throw it into Photoshop, clean up details, put in any of the layers for type, all those things that they need for the publishing side of it, color correct as best I can. And then I package everything up. It takes a while. I mean, it takes 6 months sometimes to put together a book. Maybe, I think the shortest I've ever done is about 2 months, somewhere in that range for a book. And then I package it all up in this giant transfer of files that are hundreds of megabytes, and I send it off to the publisher, and I cross my fingers. And then hopefully it comes back in decent shape. Sometimes I get a PDF, sometimes I get advanced reader copies. In the case of Penny's Worth, I got some proofs, so I get to check color and all the details, and I get to find all the mistakes that I missed. I know on Penny, there was on the end paper that Kim was talking about, the dollar was missing his hand. Somehow I just forgot to paint the hand in there. And so I had to, last minute send that off and be like, okay, please put this in the book before it goes to print. There's always mistakes like that, but it is a long process. I mean, most of the spreads took me probably about 2 nights to finish, somewhere in that range. And you're talking 16, 17 spreads and cover and edits and all those things. So it is a long haul.
It is, but as we've seen, this one turned out very well. So you can breathe easy now.
I know when I get this back and I'm like, I don't see any major mistakes or like things in it, I'm just like, oh, there's a sigh of relief. And I will say this right off the bat. I think this is the first book that I've gotten back where I'm just like absolutely pleased with how it all came out, that I didn't find any major mistakes. In my own books, I've had stuff where it's like, there's one that's missing an ear on a character for some reason, and all sorts of weird. A new one that I have coming out in another week, I missed something. I won't say what. I'm not going to tell any, but this one came back clean. And so I'm very
Fabulous. Yes, it's almost like when you get the book for the first time, you're first excited, of course, but then there's that little shred of doubt where you kind of like hesitate to open it at first, or like, oh my gosh. So I'm glad that this one worked out.
Well, I'm sure when you get notes back on the writing, you get the same thing, where it's like, I'm afraid to open this file. You're just looking for the comments on the side, like just counting them before you even actually read through what they are. Like, no, too much yellow.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And what's funny with Page Street, it was so collaborative that our notes were probably longer, but there was like one little word or something because we were brainstorming together. So it's been such a great, we didn't talk much about the process of editing, like once it was acquired. But once we got into that editing phase, and I'm sure the same was with you and Julia, it was such a pleasure to work with Page Street's editors, and Kayla Tostevan has been amazing. And so I'm just grateful that, all those notes were kind of fun brainstorming sessions versus too much. Oh no.
I think that's the thing I like about small publishers or independent publishers. It's oftentimes it is a small outfit. And so it's really personable, and you get to know people. Like if you think about Page Street, there is not a huge plethora of folks that we're going to work with. And so you get to know them, and that editing, I think, and the art direction comes out so much better because you really get to talk to them. And it's not this sort of like, we have another project that's bearing down on us, on an hourly basis. And so I agree. I think working with them was great.
Great to hear that positive experience that you both had on both sides. Because again, like you said in the beginning, Kim, it takes a village. So it takes a village for like the creative part, and then it takes a village for this part once it is acquired, and you have to go through, these other people. So that's a great kind of insight into that side of this world. I do have another question for Kim from Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
She says, Kim, can you tell us a bit about where you got your inspiration for your sensational puns? And I'd also like to kind of add on to that too. Is it more difficult to revise your work because there are so many puns? Like, do you have to revise the puns when you revise parts of the story too?
Oh gosh, I think I just wrote a blog post for SCBWI North Carolina, or Carolinas, sorry, both Carolinas, about the puns and how, because they do have to be very particular. So there were ones that ended up getting cut because either I had used a couple scent puns already, and we cut the one that just wasn't working as well. Or the meaning wasn't perfect. But I mean, Jen knows we've had some brainstorm sessions ourselves for puns. A lot of times we'll banter back and forth, or everybody knows I like a good shower. It gets my brain going, and I literally voice text myself like 80 different ideas while I'm in the shower. I also love going down the idioms dictionary hole online, as well as word hippo and finding synonyms. And oh gosh, I could go on and on. I could spend hours online delving into that as well. So between critique partners and bantering and brainstorming and going down the rabbit hole online, like I've said, and a good brainstorm shower, I end up with countless puns.
Excellent. All right, I do have a couple more questions before we wrap up, and this is a question for both of you. So Mark, we'll start with you. Can you tell us about a book that you wish you would have illustrated? It's from Carrie. I know.
That's a tough one. I feel like I want to go back and dive into my my collection of books back here. I mean, there are authors that I lean on that I meaning like different authors. I want to make sure I'm answering this
Well,
right
she
way.
said a book that you have that you wish you would have written or illustrated. So since you were an illustrator, if you want to talk about
Shoot.
one that you wish you would have
Okay.
illustrated, that's fine, or written, it's up to you.
You know which one I really love that I think is a great concept is School's First Day of School.
Oh yeah, that's
Adam Rex and Christian Robinson. First of all, Christian Robinson, who is a genius. I mean, I think he is like one. If he's not your favorite illustrator for kids' books, something's wrong because he is so good at simplification. And he's our new like Eric Carle, essentially. But the story of that one, that idea of just, and again, it's an inanimate object. I guess I lean on that kind of thing in general.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know, it's the idea of a school is newly built. It has never had kids in it for the first time. And so it's nervous about the first day of school. And it ends up, there's a bully and other things that he helps sort of thwart that bully. But it's about that nervousness of like what it's like to go to school for the first time, but told from the opposite point of view. And I think that sort of heartfelt story and that relationship of what it's like to be a kid and to be in those environments and sort of an adult. I mean, I think what boils down as it being one of the best ones in my mind is it is an adult that actually captured childlike wonder. And so that to me is one of those ones where like, I wish I had written it. I wish I had illustrated it. However, I also wish I was Christian Robinson. There are other things involved there. But that would be my go-to for the most part.
I think there's a lot of us who wish we could be him when we grow up. So I think
Yeah.
that's a perfectly great answer.
What's
What about
sad is
you?
when we grow up and he's much younger than I am. And
Well.
when
Those
I
are
age
small
down,
details.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great choice. What about you, Kim?
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was coming to me.
It
Oh
is.
gosh, there are
Surprise.
so many.
Which book did you?
Oh, put me on the spot. There are so many. Gosh, anything Amy Dykman. I mean, she's just so funny. I think when I read You Don't Want a Unicorn, I was like, there are like 280-ish words in that. And I was like, mind blown. I mean, Dandy, all of her work, I'm just, I'm in awe of.
Great choice. Yeah. Any of those books, especially with your love of puns and being able
Humor.
to kind of get an important message across in a funny way. I think that's right up your alley. So I would like to end this evening. We do have a few questions about this topic, which is something that I was hoping we could end with anyways. You've talked about the sequel a lot, so I'd kind of like to end on talking about the sequel to A Penny's Worth, and so we'd love to know a little bit about the story and also when it comes out, just in case somebody was joining us late and they didn't hear us talking about it before. So Kim, we'll start with you.
Okay, it's called A Dollar's Grand Dream. And we all know Bill is a wrangling change maker. And I can't say his name without doing this.
Everybody has to do this when we talk about it.
He just loves tipping, paying, donating. He has a wonderful life. But when he finds out there's a grand life out there, he kind of wishes he were bigger. And from there he goes on this journey, and perhaps learns that it's not always greener. Grass isn't always greener on the other side. And it continues on with the math as well, the place of each number. So you have the thousands place, the hundreds, the tens, the ones. So it gets into that a little bit. discreetly in the book, and then a little more in the back matter, just like in Penny. So yeah, that's the second book. It's due out spring 2023. I'll let Mark talk a little bit about the art if he wants to. I just saw the cover and the art, so I'm super, super excited. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
gorgeous.
please, Mark, tell us a little bit about the art for book two.
I got to add in real quick. I love, because I know the story of it. I've been working, I finished the book maybe, I don't know, about a month ago or something like that, all the artwork for it. And I love that you're hinting at it. And I know the whole story. So what are you going to say? What spoilers are you going to give, and what are you not? So the art, again, it was handy because most of the books I've worked on have been singular books. There's not been a sequel. And so it was sort of easy in a way to jump back into the visuals in this one because they were already there. I mean, there was the penny and nickel and quarter and dime show up again. The dollar bill shows up, and some other variable characters. But again, I had already pre-established the world, and I had pre-established the color palette, and even the idea of, like, in all of these books, both of them, rather, there is a lot that happens on a page. I like to refer to it as sort of illustrated collage, in the sense of there's different moments that happen on just sort of a singular spread. And so it's not just one time. And so that was already decided for me. So that made it a whole lot easier. I don't know what I can show. I mean, I have that, the inside. I will share this one. No one take a screen grab of this and then go print your own book.
This is private.
But just like in the underside of Pennyworth on the PLC, there is Penny stuck in some gum and things hidden underneath the dust jacket. For underneath a dollar's grand dream, one of the things that he references in it is that he wants to be famous, and the idea of, like, he gets to ride in sports cars and glamorous, and it's not as glamorous as he thinks, but there's a reference to that sports car. And so the underside of the cover is actually the dollar here with his hat and everything being blown around by the wind, and the $1,000 bill, who's a character in it that shows up here. So this will be underneath the dust jacket. So when you flip it open, you should get a nice big view of the sports car. That wasn't part of the story, and it was one of those things where I just got to pitch ideas of what we could do underneath that would just be interesting. And so that's what came of it.
Love that. First scene here on the Park Road book party for a penny's worth. Thank you very much for sharing that, Mark. That was great.
Not a problem.
Everybody smiled. I can see it. And Kim, I have to tell you, I have been watching your mom, and she is so excited for you. I keep looking down at her. She has
Like
the biggest
leaning in.
smile. Yes.
I can see my dad. I know. I was hoping you'd give me a chance to, like, say something, because my parents have like encouraged me since I was young to write, and so it's all, culminating to this moment right now. So I appreciate all of their support throughout the years, and I'm so happy to see them here tonight. My girls, they've listened to like every edit, which was a lot, I told you. So they've been patiently awaiting this book as well. And they would tell me when things dragged, or they can pick up on stuff now. They learned how to write a picture book with me all over the years that I've been doing, so to them and my husband, Jeff, and, I saw some Storm Literary family here, which I really appreciate their support. Storm has been wonderful to me, as well as Page Street. We talked about the team at Page Street, my Kidlit Caravan friends who are here. I appreciate all of them. My Carolina's SCBWI folks, they're out in a big group tonight, and my critique partners, who are many and who helped me, like I said before, every little step of the way, and have just been my big support system, and some of my extremely close friends. Oh, you're gonna make me cry, Ashley. And to Mark, and oh, my dad's talking and isn't on mute. Hi, Dad.
How are you?
Good. Mark and his family has been super supportive. Mark's family, his wife is a super social media maven. She's been so supportive and wonderful. And I think his son has been part of it all the way through. And I'm probably taking his thank yous. So, but everybody, I mean, like we said before, it takes a village, and everybody here on this call, whether it's as a supportive friend or family member, or Kidlit community, family, just appreciate everybody and how everyone has been a part of bringing this book to life. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. What about you, Mark? Do you have anybody that you want to give a special shout out to before
Well,
we close tonight?
Yes. First of all, I'm going to call my parents and complain that they weren't in on this tonight, because that's a little, yeah, wait a second. Why are they not here? So my wife and son are on here. He may be actually getting fast asleep right now. I think they may be doing reading time, but they have been a huge support, and I will absolutely vouch for my wife as being the social media person. She deals with all of that for me, which is handy because I'm way too busy with school and all sorts of things. But I also want to thank, of course, Kim and Ashley here, and specifically Park Road Books. I don't know how much people get a chance to get out to bookstores, but I think it's huge that smaller independent bookstores support authors and artists and sort of the reading interest for kids. And so I would just say, anybody that has a chance, if you haven't already bought the book, one, Park Road Books is sponsoring this tonight. And I think getting out and helping them, and if that is not an option, going out and supporting your local indie bookstores, because they make this really possible for us. We have, most of us in this book community, I could thank individual people, but I want to thank all the people that are out there supporting Kidlit, because helps all of us. There are so many bookstores that survived the pandemic because people were ordering books and reading books, and libraries. Someone, I don't know if that's even out here, but libraries, the amount of people that get access to this stuff that don't get the support or have been struggling at this point in time with literature and bannings and all sorts of stuff, and just getting these books in people's hands, I think is so important. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say thank you to those who support the community.
Yes. Well,
And-
thank you both. That is something that we definitely need to do, is support the Kidlit community across, whether it's supporting each other or supporting libraries or independent bookstores. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, thank you. Because Hallie and Park Road Books have been so supportive of this book. From this event to helping get books into schools, to our live in-person event, yay, that I'll be at April 24th, which is a Sunday, from 12 to 2 p.m. They're hosting me for that too. So literally everything, they are just there to support me all the time. So Mark, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. And thank you all who are here. This village of support has just been phenomenal tonight. And Kim, we are all just so proud of you. And Mark, we are so proud of you and excited for both of you to have this book come into the world. Officially on April 19th is the official release date. So if you have pre-ordered, hopefully you'll get it that day or soon. And again, we just want to thank you for your show of support and for coming out and celebrating with us. It is just fantastic. And we hope that you all have a sensational evening. Thank you, guys.
That's Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
That's not enough said.
Now get back out on the
Great
beach.
job, Ashley.
I'm going back to the pool now.
Oh.